She was eating scraps from a dumpster when the man in the expensive suit recognized her. 7 years ago, she'd taken a bullet meant for a stranger's child. Now he was standing there, staring at the scar on her face, the one his son's life had cost her. And he had no intention of walking away. The black SUV idled 3 blocks away from St. Catherine's Orphanage, engine purring like a sleeping predator. Anton Russo adjusted his plain gray suit. No Italian leather today, no gold cufflinks that caught the light. Just another businessman checking on a charitable investment. "Boss, you sure about this?" Carlo, his driver, watched him through the rearview mirror. The accountant found discrepancies. "I need to see the books myself." Anton's voice was flat, final. Carlo knew better than to argue. The orphanage sat wedged between 2 abandoned factories in South Brooklyn, a stubborn patch of hope in a neighborhood that had given up decades ago. Anton had been funding it for 6 years through a shell corporation, Bennett Children's Foundation, named after nobody in particular. The nuns running the place had no idea their largest donor was the same man who controlled half the port traffic in New York. He walked through the front gates at 2:47 p.m., briefcase in hand. Sister Margaret greeted him with the tired smile of someone who'd seen too many broken promises. "Mr. Bennett, we weren't expecting you until Thursday. Schedule changed. I hope that's not a problem?" "Of course not. The children are in art class. You're welcome to observe." But Anton wasn't here for the children, not today. He followed Sister Margaret to her cramped office, where she produced 3 years of financial statements, each page more damning than the last. Someone had been skimming. Not much, $200 here, $350 there, but enough to notice if you knew what to look for. 20 minutes later, Anton had his answer. The assistant director, a man named DeMarco, had a gambling problem and sticky fingers. Simple. Fixable. Anton made a note in his phone. DeMarco would receive a visit tonight, not from Anton but from people who specialized in collecting debts and breaking habits. He left through the back entrance, avoiding the main hall where children's laughter echoed off linoleum floors. The exit led to a narrow alley that smelled of rotting vegetables and wet cardboard. The dumpster overflowed with black bags, and beyond it, the chain-link fence separated the orphanage from the abandoned factory next door. That's when he saw her. A woman crouched behind the dumpster, partially hidden by shadow. She wore a stained gray hoodie 3 sizes too big, and her fingers, thin, trembling, clutched a styrofoam container. Inside were the remnants of what looked like the staff's lunch, soggy French fries, half a sandwich with 1 bite taken out. She ate like someone who'd learned to be grateful for garbage. Anton stopped walking. He should have kept going, should have pretended he hadn't seen. But something made him pause. Maybe the way she hunched her shoulders, making herself smaller, invisible. Or maybe it was the methodical way she chewed, savoring every bite like it might be her last. She must have felt his stare, because she looked up. Anton's breath caught in his chest. The world tilted, spun, rearranged itself. He knew that face. Thinner now, gaunt, with hollowed cheeks and eyes that had seen too much. But he knew those eyes, gray-green, like storm clouds over the ocean. And he knew that scar, a thick white line that cut diagonally across her left cheek from ear to jaw. 7 years ago. The parking garage. The gunshot. Matteo had been 5 years old, holding Anton's hand as they walked toward the car. The boy was laughing about something, a cartoon, maybe, or a joke his uncle had told. Anton remembered thinking how normal it felt, how rare those moments were. He didn't see the shooter until the man was already raising his gun. Anton had reached for his own weapon, but he was too slow. The assassin had the angle, had the shot. Matteo was going to die. Then she appeared. A homeless girl, maybe 16 or 17, had been sleeping in the corner near the stairwell. She'd launched herself forward without thinking, without hesitation. She crashed into Matteo, knocking him aside just as the gun fired. The bullet caught her in the face instead. She'd hit the ground hard, blood pooling beneath her head. Anton's men had killed the shooter instantly, but the girl, she just lay there, eyes wide with shock, hand pressed to her ruined cheek. Anton had called an ambulance, had tried to speak to her, but she'd been in shock. By the time the paramedics arrived, she was unconscious. He'd paid for her hospital stay anonymously, left instructions for her care. But when he'd sent men to check on her 2 days later, she was gone. Vanished. The hospital had no forwarding information, no name beyond Jane Doe. He'd searched for months. Nothing. And now here she was, eating trash behind his orphanage. "Hey," Anton's voice came out rougher than intended. "You okay?" She scrambled backward, dropping the container. Her whole body tense like a rabbit spotting a wolf. I'm sorry, I'll go." Her voice was hoarse and used to speaking. "Wait," he held up both hands, showing empty palms. "I'm not going to hurt you." But she was already moving, trying to stand. Her legs buckled. She caught herself against the dumpster, breathing hard. Anton took a step closer. She flinched. "What's your name?" he asked. "Maria." The lie came quick, practiced. "I was just leaving." "When's the last time you had a real meal?" She didn't answer. Her eyes darted toward the gap between the dumpster and the fence, calculating distance, escape routes. "There's a diner 2 blocks north," Anton said carefully. "They make a decent meatloaf. Let me buy you lunch." "I don't need charity." Pride, sharp and brittle, cut through her fear. "It's not charity. He paused, choosing his words. "It's a thank you." "For what?" "You'll remember eventually." That's when she really looked at him. Her gaze sharpened, focusing. He watched the moment recognition flickered across her face. Not of him specifically, but of what he represented. Her eyes dropped to his shoes, Italian leather, despite his earlier restraint. Traveled up to the expensive watch barely visible beneath his cuff, landed finally on the 2 men who'd appeared at the alley's entrance. Carlo and Vincent, his bodyguards. Both had their jackets open just enough to show the guns at their hips. "Mafia," she whispered. Anton didn't deny it. She pressed harder against the dumpster, as if she could phase through solid metal and disappear. "I don't want trouble. I haven't seen anything. I don't know anything." "I know," his voice softened. "But you're going to pass out if you don't eat something real. And I can't have that on my conscience. I don't owe you." "You don't owe me anything. But I owe you. More than you know." She stared at him, confusion warring with terror. Then her knees gave out completely. Anton moved fast, catching her before she hit the pavement. She weighed almost nothing, all bones and sharp angles. Up close, he could see the exhaustion carved into her face, the way her skin stretched tight over her skull. "Carlo," Anton called. "Bring the car around." "Now." "Boss, if someone sees." "I don't care. Move." The woman stirred in his arms, trying weakly to push away. No hospitals." They asked questions. "No hospitals," Anton agreed. "Somewhere safe. I promise." She looked up at him with those storm cloud eyes, and something in her expression broke his heart. It was the look of someone who'd been promised safety before and learned the cost of believing it. "Why?" she whispered. Anton thought about that parking garage. About his son's laughter cut short by gunfire. About the girl who'd thrown herself into death's path without hesitation. "Because 7 years ago," he said quietly, "you saved my son's life. And I never got to say thank you." Her eyes widened. Then they rolled back, and she went limp in his arms. Mara's eyes snapped open to the smell of grilled onions and coffee. She was sitting in the back seat of an expensive car, leather interior, tinted windows, the kind of vehicle that cost more than she'd earned in her entire life. Panic hit her like ice water. She lunged for the door handle. Locked. "Easy." The Mafia boss sat across from her in the facing seat, hands folded calmly in his lap. Between them, on the center console, sat a paper bag from Mike's diner. Steam rose from the top. "You fainted." "We're still parked behind the orphanage. See?" He gestured to the window. Mara looked. The dumpster was still visible, 20 feet away. The orphanage's brick wall loomed beyond it. They hadn't moved. "The door's open from the inside," he continued. "You're not a prisoner. But you need to eat before you go anywhere." "I don't want your food," but her stomach betrayed her, growling loud enough to echo in the quiet car. Your body disagrees. He pulled a wrapped burger from the bag, along with fries and a bottle of water. It's not poisoned. Look, he took a bite of the burger himself, chewed, swallowed.
See?
Safe. Mara pressed herself against the door, putting as much distance between them as possible. What do you want from me? Nothing. Liars in expensive suits always want something. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. Smart girl. But I'm telling the truth. You saved my son. That's a debt I can't repay with money. The least I can do is make sure you don't starve to death in an alley. I don't remember any son, another lie. But she'd learned long ago that remembering the wrong things could get you killed. 7 years ago. Parking garage on Delancey Street. A man tried to shoot a 5-year-old boy. You stopped him. The memory crashed over her. Concrete pillars, the echo of footsteps, the cold pressure of metal against her cheek before everything went white with pain. She'd woken up in a hospital with police asking questions she couldn't answer because she didn't know who'd shot her or why. The boy, Mara's hand drifted unconsciously to her scarred cheek. He was okay. Because of you. And the shooter? Dead before he hit the ground. Anton's voice went cold. My men made sure of that. Mara closed her eyes. She'd suspected it was gang-related, but hearing confirmation made it real in a way that hollowed out her chest. So you're the father. I am. And now you think you owe me. I know I do. I don't want to be owned by the Mafia. She met his gaze directly, despite the fear making her hands shake. Whatever debt you think exists, consider it paid. I'm leaving. She reached for the door handle. This time it clicked open. She'd expected him to stop her, but he just watched with those dark, calculating eyes. Mara stepped out onto the cracked asphalt. The autumn air hit her face, cool and freeing. She took 3 steps before her vision tilted sideways. The ground rushed up to meet her. Strong hands caught her. Not the Mafia boss, but one of his guards. The big one with the scarred knuckles. Careful, miss, he said, surprisingly gentle. You went down hard. I'm fine, but her legs wouldn't support her weight. Black spots danced at the edges of her vision. You're not fine, Anton appeared beside her. Carlo, how long has it been since you've seen someone this malnourished? Kosovo, boss. The refugee camps in 99-inch. That's what I thought, Anton nodded toward the car. Get her to Dr. Rivera. Tell him full workup, private room, and absolute discretion. No, Mara tried to pull away, but she had no strength left. No doctors. They'll report me. There's a warrant. For what? Vagrancy. Anton's laugh was bitter. Dr. Rivera works for me. He doesn't report to anyone. You'll be safe. Safe, she spat the word. Nothing safe when the Mafia's involved. You're probably right, he signaled to his guard. But you're dying, Maria, or whatever your real name is. So you have 2 choices. Accept my help and live, or walk away and collapse in some other alley where no one will find you until you're already cold. Tears burned behind Mara's eyes. She hated him for being right. Hated herself for being so weak that she had no other options. Why? The question came out broken. Why do you care? Anton was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a weight that made her believe him. Because that parking garage wasn't random. The shooter was there for me. He was supposed to kill me, and when he couldn't get a clean shot, he aimed for my son instead. You didn't just save Matteo. You threw yourself between a child and a bullet meant for his father's sins. He crouched down so they were eye level. I've done terrible things in my life. I'll probably do more before I'm done. But I will not let the girl who saved my son die in the same city where I sleep in a mansion. So get in the car, or don't. But if you stay out here, you won't see tomorrow. Mara looked into his eyes and saw something unexpected. Guilt. Not manipulation, not pity. Just raw, human guilt. 1 meal, she whispered. Then I leave. 1 meal, he agreed. It was a lie they both needed to believe. Mara woke to the sound of machines beeping in steady rhythm. White ceiling tiles. The smell of antiseptic and clean sheets. Her body felt heavy, disconnected, like she was floating underwater. A hospital?
He lied.
She tried to sit up, but her arm was tethered to an four-line. Panic flooded her system. She reached for the needle, ready to rip it out and run. "I wouldn't do that if I were you," a woman's voice, calm and professional. A doctor in blue scrubs stood by the door, clipboard in hand. Late 50s, dark hair pulled back, eyes that had seen everything twice. "You'll bleed all over my clean floors, and I just had them waxed. Where am I?" Mara's throat felt like sandpaper. "Somewhere safe." "That's all you need to know right now." The doctor moved closer, checking the monitors.
"I'm Dr. Rivera."
"I've been taking care of you for the past 3 days." 3 days? Mara's heart hammered against her ribs.
No.
"No, I need to leave. You need to stay in that bed before you pass out again." Dr. Rivera's tone left no room for argument. "When's the last time you had a proper meal? And I don't mean dumpster diving." Mara's face burned with shame. "That's none of your business." "It became my business when you arrived with a hemoglobin level of 62. Do you know what that means?" The doctor pulled up a chair, sat down with a heavy sigh. "It means you were maybe 2 weeks away from your heart simply giving up. Severe anemia, malnutrition, dehydration. Your body was cannibalizing itself to stay alive. I've been managing. You've been dying slowly." Dr. Rivera's expression softened. "Listen, I don't know what you're running from, and I'm not going to ask. But I found something else during your examination." Mara went very still. "What?" "There's a bullet fragment lodged near your 6th rib. Left side, about 2 inches from your heart. It's been there a while, years from the look of the scar tissue. It's encapsulated now, but it's causing chronic inflammation. That's part of why you've been so weak." The parking garage. Mara's hand moved instinctively to her side, where she'd felt a dull ache for so long she'd stopped noticing it. "Can you remove it?" "I can. But it's surgery, and you're not strong enough yet. We need to build you back up first, get some weight on you, stabilize your blood counts. Maybe 4 to 6 weeks." "I don't have 6 weeks." Mara pulled at the four-line again. "I need to leave now." "You're not leaving." A man's voice came from outside the room, deep, familiar, carrying absolute authority. Anton Russo stood in the hallway, visible through the room's window. He didn't enter, just stood there with his hands in his pockets, watching her like she might evaporate if he looked away. "This is kidnapping," Mara said, loud enough for him to hear through the door. "It's medical care." His voice was muffled by the glass, but clear enough. "Dr. Rivera, can you give us a moment?" The doctor glanced between them, then nodded. "I'll be right outside. Behave, both of you." She left, closing the door behind her, but staying visible through the window. Anton remained in the hallway. He made no move to enter. "Why aren't you coming in?" Mara asked. "Because you're scared enough already. I'm not going to crowd you." He leaned against the wall, maintaining the distance. "How do you feel?" "Like I've been hit by a truck." "That's the iron infusions. They'll make you feel worse before you feel better." He paused. "I need you to know something. This isn't a prison. You can leave whenever you want." But Dr. Rivera wasn't exaggerating. "If you walk out now, you'll die. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon. So, what's your plan? Keep me here until I'm healthy enough to owe you?" "No." His answer was immediate, firm. "You saved a child once, my child. The most important person in my world. You didn't ask for anything in return. You didn't even wait around to be thanked. So no, you don't owe me anything. But I owe you everything." Mara felt tears building behind her eyes. She fought them back. "I don't want your guilt money." "It's not guilt money. It's—" He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "You took a bullet meant for my son. You almost died protecting a kid you didn't know. And then you disappeared into the streets, like you were ashamed of being a hero."
"Why?"
"Why didn't you come find us? We would have helped you. Because people like me don't get happy endings with people like you." Mara's voice cracked. "I saved your son because it was the right thing to do. Not because I wanted to be pulled into whatever world you live in. The Mafia doesn't give, it takes. Everyone knows that." Silence stretched between them. Anton stared at the floor, jaw tight. "You're right," he finally said. My world destroys things. It's why I keep my distance from good people. But you're not those things anymore. You're dying. And I can't. I won't let that happen. Not to you. Why? The question came out as a broken whisper. Why do you care so much? Anton looked up, and his eyes held something raw and honest. Because my son asks about you. Every year on the anniversary, he draws pictures of the girl who saved him. He's 12 now, and he still remembers. He thinks you're an angel who disappeared. How do I tell him I found you eating garbage behind an orphanage? Mara burst into tears then, deep, wrenching sobs that hurt her chest and made the monitors beep frantically. She covered her face with her hands, shoulders shaking. You will not starve, Anton said quietly through the door. Not while I'm alive. That's not a threat. It's a promise. The office existed in a space that didn't officially exist, 3 floors beneath a legitimate import-export warehouse in Red Hook. Concrete walls, reinforced steel door, no windows. The kind of room where secrets went to live or die. Anton sat at his desk, surrounded by file folders that told a story he wished he didn't need to know. This is everything? He looked up at Marco, his head of intelligence. The man had been digging for 5 days straight, surviving on coffee and cigarettes. Everything I could find. Which isn't much. Marco dropped into a chair, exhausted. She's a ghost, boss. Like she's been actively trying to erase herself. Anton opened the first folder. A hospital admission form from 7 years ago, filled out by paramedics.
Name, Jane Doe.
Age, estimated 16 to 17. Injury, gunshot wound to face and torso. The handwriting was rushed, barely legible. She was at St. Luke's for 36 hours, Marco said. Underwent emergency surgery to stabilize the facial wound. The bullet went through her cheek, shattered part of her jaw. Surgeons had to wire it back together. The second bullet, the one still inside her, they couldn't remove safely at the time. Patient was unconscious for most of it, and then she left. Against medical advice. Just walked out in the middle of the night wearing a stolen nurse's uniform. Security footage shows her limping toward the subway. After that, nothing for 8 months. Anton flipped to the next section. A police report, filed by a bodega owner in the Bronx. She resurfaces here, Marco continued. Bodega owner caught her stealing bread and canned soup. But instead of pressing charges, he gave her a job. She worked there for 3 months, then disappeared again.
Why?
According to the owner, some guys came around asking questions. Gang members, probably. She left that same night, didn't even collect her last paycheck. The pattern repeated itself throughout the files. Anton traced her path through the city like following a ghost. A janitor at a community center in Queens for 4 months, gone after someone recognized her scar. A dishwasher in Hell's Kitchen for 2 months, vanished after a cop started asking questions. A stock girl at a 24-hour laundromat in Brooklyn disappeared when a customer took her photo. She's been running, Anton said quietly. All this time, she's been running. From what, though? Marco leaned forward. I checked. There's no warrant out for her. No criminal record. Hell, she doesn't even officially exist. No birth certificate, no social security number, no school records. It's like she was born at 16 in that parking garage. Anton studied a grainy security photo from the laundromat, dated 8 months ago. Mara looked directly at the camera, eyes wide with fear. The next day's timestamp showed her station empty. She's not running from the law, Anton realized. She's running from being seen. Every time someone notices her, remembers her, she bolts. But why? What's she afraid of? Anton thought about the girl in the hospital room, the way she'd flinched when he mentioned the Mafia, the terror in her eyes when she thought she owed him something. She thinks being remembered makes her valuable, he said slowly. And valuable people get used. Get controlled. That's paranoid. Or smart. Anton closed the folder. In our world, doing someone a favor means you own a piece of them. She saved my son, and she knew that would make her important to me. So she ran before I could find her and turned that debt into chains. Marco was quiet for a moment. Is she right to be afraid? She was. Anton met his lieutenant's eyes. But not anymore. I want you to set something up. Quietly. What kind of something? A trust fund.
F.
Routed through 3 shell corporations so it can't be traced back to me. Enough for her to live on. Get an apartment. Start over. Boss. She's not going to take money from you. I know. That's why she's never going to know it's from me. Anton pulled out a notepad, began writing. I also want you to find every place she's worked. Every boss who gave her a chance. Send them each $5,000 with a note saying it's from a grateful family member. Make it look legitimate. You're paying her debts. I'm making sure the people who helped her when I couldn't are rewarded for their decency. Anton's pen scratched across paper. And I want eyes on every location she's ever been.
Discrète surveillance.
If she runs again, I need to know where she goes.
Marcos shifted uncomfortably.
Boss, that sounds like stalking. It's protection. She might not see it that way. Anton slammed the pen down, frustrated. Then what am I supposed to do, Marco? Let her disappear again? Let her die in some alley because she's too proud or too scared to accept help. Maybe that's her choice to make. The words hit harder than Anton expected. He stared at the files scattered across his desk, a life documented in fragments, held together by fear and survival instinct. She's 23 years old, Anton said quietly. Maybe 24. She should be in college or traveling or falling in love. Instead, she's eating garbage and sleeping in places that aren't safe. Because 7 years ago, she saved my son and thought it would destroy her life. It kind of did, didn't it? Anton had no answer for that. His phone buzzed. A text from Dr. Rivera. She's asking to leave. I can't hold her much longer. I need to go. Anton stood, grabbing his jacket. Keep digging. I want to know everything, where she came from, how she ended up in that parking garage, why she has no records. Someone knows who she is. And if I find out she's running from something dangerous? Anton paused at the door. Then we deal with it. Whatever it takes. The motel was the kind of place that rented rooms by the hour and didn't ask questions. Peeling wallpaper, a mattress that sagged in the middle, a TV that only got 3 channels. But it was cheap, and the owner took cash without requiring ID. Mara had been there for 2 days since leaving Dr. Rivera's facility. She still felt weak, but the 4 fluids and iron infusions had given her enough strength to walk without collapsing. She'd promised the doctor she'd return for follow-up care. Another lie added to the collection. She was sorting through her meager possessions, a change of clothes, a stolen toothbrush, $17 in crumpled bills, when someone knocked on the door. Mara froze. Nobody knew she was here. She'd paid extra to use a back entrance, had avoided the main office entirely. Hello? A young voice, uncertain. Is anyone there? Not Anton's voice. Not his guards. Mara crept to the door, peered through the peephole. A boy stood in the hallway. 12, maybe 13, with dark curly hair and his father's sharp cheekbones. He wore expensive jeans and a Yankees hoodie, and he was alone except for 2 large men in suits standing 10 feet behind him. Mateo. Mara's heart stopped. She pressed her back against the door, breath coming in short gasps. I know you're in there, the boy said.
Please.
I just want to talk. Just for a minute. Go away, her voice shook. I can't. Not until you hear me out, he paused. I'm the one you saved. In the parking garage. I was 5-inch. I know who you are. Then you know I owe you my life. Mara closed her eyes.
You don't owe me anything. Tell your father I said that.
He didn't send me. He doesn't even know I'm here. The boy shifted his weight nervously. I made Marco tell me where you were. He'll probably get in trouble, but I had to see you. Against her better judgment, Mara opened the door a crack. The chain lock stayed engaged. Mateo looked up at her with eyes that were too old for his face. Eyes that had seen violence and learned to expect it. You remember me? He asked. I remember a little boy who laughed a lot. Mara studied his serious expression. You don't laugh anymore, do you? Not much. He reached into his hoodie pocket. Mara tensed, but he only pulled out a folded piece of paper. I drew this when I was 6. My therapist said it might help with the nightmares. He unfolded it carefully. The drawing was crude, done in crayon, a stick figure of a boy holding a man's hand. Behind them, a larger figure with long hair and a scarred face stood between the boy and a black scribble that might have been a gun. I drew you every year on the anniversary, Matteo said quietly. Every year, I got a little better at drawing. But I could never get your face right because I only saw you for a second before everything went crazy. Mara's throat tightened. Why are you here? Because I never forgot you. Even when everyone said you probably died, or that you were just some random homeless person who got caught in the crossfire, I knew you weren't. You pushed me out of the way on purpose. You looked right at me, and then you jumped. Any decent person would have done the same. That's not true, and you know it. Matteo's voice gained strength. Most people run away from bullets. You ran toward them. The guards shifted behind him, uncomfortable. One of them, Marco, caught Mara's eye and mouthed, I'm sorry. I need you to leave, Mara said. Your father can't know you're here. It's not safe. Safe. Matteo laughed, bitter and sharp. Nothing's safe. Not for people like us. You think I don't know what my dad does? You think I don't know that people want to hurt him by hurting me? Then you understand why you need to stay away from me.
No.
I understand why I needed to see you. He held up the drawing again. You saved me. Not because my dad paid you, not because you wanted something. You saw a kid in danger, and you acted. Do you know how rare that is in my world? Mara felt tears building. I'm not a hero. I'm just someone who got lucky and didn't die. You're the only good thing that ever happened because of my father's life, Matteo's voice cracked. Everything else, every person who smiles at me, every friend I make, I have to wonder if they're real or if they're just scared of what my dad might do. But you didn't even know who we were. You just saved a random kid because it was right. The tears spilled over. Mara couldn't stop them. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm sorry that saving you trapped you in this life. I'm sorry that knowing me puts you in danger.
I'm sorry.
Don't. Matteo stepped closer to the door. Don't apologize for being the one person who ever protected me without wanting something back. That's not something to be sorry about. He slid the drawing through the gap in the door. It fluttered to the floor at Mara's feet. Keep it, he said. So you remember that what you did mattered. That you mattered. Matteo. My dad says you won't take his help because you think we'll trap you. But you're already trapped, aren't you? Trapped by running, by hiding, by being so afraid that you'd rather eat garbage than let anyone see you. His eyes met hers, clear and honest. Maybe being trapped with people who care about you is better than being free and alone. He turned and walked away, his guards falling into step behind him. Mara slid down the door until she was sitting on the floor, staring at the crayon drawing, at the stick figure with a scarred face who stood between a child and death. She picked it up with shaking hands and, for the first time in 7 years, let herself cry without trying to be silent about it. The mansion sat behind gates that cost more than most houses, surrounded by walls that promised privacy and delivered isolation. Mara had expected cold marble and dark corners, the kind of place where business was discussed in low voices and bodies were buried in the basement. Instead, Anton led her to a garden. This is unexpected. Mara stood at the entrance to a courtyard filled with flowering trees and stone pathways. A fountain burbled in the center, and wooden benches sat in pools of dappled sunlight. My wife designed it before she died. Anton's voice was careful, controlled. She said every home needed a place where violence couldn't reach. I think she was naive, but I kept it anyway. I'm sorry about your wife. Don't be. You never met her. He gestured to a bench near the fountain.
Seat, please.
I promise this is neutral ground.
No guards, no locked doors.
Just a conversation. Mara sat, but kept her muscles tensed for flight. Why am I here? Because my son won't stop talking about you. Because Dr. Rivera says you need stability and rest. Because he stopped frustrated. Because I don't know how to help you if you won't let me. I never asked for your help. I know. That's what makes this so damn complicated. Anton sat on the opposite end of the bench, maintaining distance. "Let me show you something." He pulled out his phone, tapped the screen, then turned it toward her. Security footage played, black and white, grainy. Mateo, younger, maybe 7 or 8, sitting in a therapist's office. Even without sound, Mara could see the boy's distress. He rocked back and forth, hands pressed over his ears. "He's had nightmares since the shooting," Anton said quietly. "Panic attacks in crowds. Fireworks on the 4th of July send him into a spiral for days. He can't go to normal school because he's terrified of loud noises." Mara watched the boy on the screen, her heart breaking. "I've hired the best therapists money can buy. Specialists, psychiatrists, people who work with trauma victims. They've helped, but Anton's jaw tightened. He still wakes up screaming twice a week. Still flinches when cars backfire. He's 12 years old, and he's already figured out that the world wants him dead. That's not. It is, though." Anton's voice turned hard. "Because of what I do, because of who I am, my son will never feel safe. And the worst part? The moment he felt most safe was when a stranger threw herself in front of a bullet for him. He spent 7 years wondering if he imagined you, if you were real, if you survived." The video changed to a different session. Mateo drawing at a table, his therapist watching. The boy drew the same scene over and over. The stick figure guardian with the scarred face. "He asks about you on every anniversary," Anton continued. "August 14th. Every year, he wants to know if we've found you. If you're okay. If you're alive." Mara's hands clenched in her lap. "Stop. Please." "I can't. Because 3 days ago, I watched my son smile for the first time in months after meeting you. And yesterday, he slept through the entire night without nightmares. One conversation with you did more than 2 years of therapy." "That's not fair," Mara said. "You can't put that on me. I'm not responsible for fixing your son's trauma." "You're right. You're not." Anton put his phone away. "But he's in the house right now, waiting to see if you'll talk to him again. And I'm asking, not as a mafia boss, not as someone you owe, I'm asking as a father. Will you give him an hour?" "Why would I know anything about helping him? I'm barely surviving myself." "Because you understand what it's like to live with fear." Anton's gaze was steady. "Every therapist I've hired has treated Mateo like a case study.
But you?
You know what it's like to move through the world expecting violence. You know survival isn't something you learn from textbooks." Mara stared at the fountain. The water caught the light, throwing prisms across the stone. "And if I say no, then Marco will drive you back to wherever you want to go. No strings attached. I'll set up the trust fund anyway. Make sure you have enough to start over somewhere safe. You'll never hear from us again." "You'd really let me go?" "I'd hate it. But yes." He stood up, straightened his jacket. "I'm not in the business of forcing people to care. That's not how this works." Before Mara could respond, footsteps crunched on the gravel path. Mateo appeared, walking slowly, carefully. He wore the same Yankees hoodie as yesterday. "Is she staying?" he asked his father, voice small and hopeful. Anton looked at Mara, the question hanging between them. Mara studied the boy, the tension in his shoulders, the way he held himself ready to run, the shadows under his eyes that matched her own. She recognized herself in him. Someone who'd learned too young that the world was dangerous and safety was a lie people told themselves. "1 hour," she heard herself say.
"Just to talk."
Mateo's face transformed. Not quite a smile, but close. Relief mixed with disbelief. "Thank you," he whispered. Anton nodded once to Mara, gratitude and acknowledgement, then turned to leave. "I'll be inside if you need anything. Marco is by the gate." Then he was gone, and it was just Mara and Mateo in a garden that promised peace but couldn't guarantee it. The boy sat down carefully, leaving space between them. "Do the nightmares ever stop?" he asked. Mara thought about lying. Then she decided he deserved the truth.
"No," she said.
"But you learn to wake up faster." Mateo nodded like this was the answer he'd expected. "Can you teach me how?" And somehow, impossibly, Mara found herself saying yes. Mara's new job wasn't glamorous. restocking shelves at an all-night pharmacy in Bensonhurst, but it was legitimate. Real paychecks, a time card she punched, co-workers who didn't ask about her scar. Anton had stayed true to his word. No strings, no obligations. Just a quiet apartment in a safe neighborhood and space to breathe. She'd been working there for 6 days when she felt eyes on her. It was 11 p.m., end of her shift. The streets were empty except for a few cars passing through yellow traffic lights. Mara pulled her jacket tighter and walked fast, keys threaded between her fingers like she'd learned in shelters. The footsteps behind her were too measured, too deliberate. She turned down an alley, a calculated risk. If they were following her, she'd know. The footsteps continued, echoing off brick walls. "Hey, sweetheart," a man's voice, rough with cigarettes. "You dropped something?" Mara didn't turn around. "I didn't drop anything." "Sure you did, closer now." "Your luck." She spun, pressing her back against the wall. 2 men blocked the alley's entrance, both wearing dark jackets, faces shadowed. One held something metallic that caught the streetlight. A gun. "Wallet and phone," the armed one said. Nice and easy. Mara's mind raced. She had maybe $40 and a prepaid phone Anton had insisted she take. "Take them." "They're in my pocket." Slowly. She reached for her pocket, but the second man lunged forward and grabbed her arm, yanking her away from the wall. His grip was iron, fingers digging into her bicep. "Actually," he said, "change of plans. You're coming with us." Terror spiked through her.
No.
The armed one stepped closer. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be. We're just supposed to deliver you somewhere. You cooperate, nobody gets hurt."
Who sent you?
But Mara already knew. This wasn't random. They'd been waiting for her, watching her routine. Does it matter? The man holding her arm twisted, forcing her toward a dark van parked on the street. "Move." Mara did the only thing she could think of. She screamed. The sound shattered the night. Windows lit up in apartments above. The armed man cursed, raised his gun. A delivery truck rounded the corner, headlights flooding the alley. The driver laid on the horn, startled by the scene. "Shit." The man holding Mara loosened his grip for just a second. She drove her elbow into his ribs, twisted free, and ran. Not toward the truck. They'd expect that. She ran deeper into the warehouse district, toward the maze of abandoned buildings she'd scouted weeks ago.
Places to hide, to disappear.
Footsteps pounded behind her. Shouting. A gunshot cracked the air, but the bullet sparked off metal somewhere to her left. Mara vaulted a chain-link fence, her weak body screaming in protest. She landed hard, rolled, kept moving. Through a gap in a warehouse wall. Past rusted machinery. Down a corridor that stank of mold and rat droppings. She found a space between 2 metal shelving units and wedged herself in, controlling her breathing.
In. Out.
Silent. The men's voices echoed through the warehouse. Where'd she go? Check the back. She couldn't have gotten far. The boss is gonna kill us if we lose her. Then don't lose her. Mara pressed deeper into the shadows, her heart hammering so loud she was sure they'd hear it. The bullet fragment in her side throbbed with each breath. Dr. Rivera had warned her about overexertion. Minutes crawled by. The voices faded. A phone rang, one of the men answering in hushed, angry tones. "Yeah, we lost her." "I don't know. She ran like a damn track star." "Fine. We'll keep looking." Silence returned. Mara waited 15 more minutes before moving, every muscle locked in tension. When she finally emerged, the warehouse district was empty. The van was gone. She stumbled back towards civilization, keeping to shadows, jumping at every sound. By the time she reached a bodega with lights on, her legs were shaking. The clerk looked up from his newspaper. "Miss? You okay?" "I need to use your phone," her voice came out raw. "Please." He handed it over without argument. Mara dialed the only number she'd memorized. It rang twice. "Yes." Marco's voice, alert despite the late hour. "It's Mara. Someone just tried to grab me." A pause. Then, "Where are you?" She gave him the intersection. "Don't move." I'm 5 minutes away. Marco. Her voice broke.
They were waiting for me.
They knew where I worked, knew my schedule. How did they know? I don't know. But we're going to find out. His tone turned cold, professional. Stay inside the bodega. Lock the door if you can. I'm calling the boss now. The line went dead. Mara handed the phone back to the clerk with shaking hands. Thank you. He studied her face, the scar, the terror in her eyes. You want me to call the cops?
No.
No cops. She moved to the window, watching the empty street. Can I wait here for a few minutes?
Sure.
You want some coffee? You look like you need it. Coffee would be good. She accepted the styrofoam cup he offered, wrapped her hands around it for warmth she didn't really need. Outside, a black SUV pulled up to the curb. Marco emerged, along with another guard she didn't recognize. And, behind them, a second car. Anton stepped out, his face carved from stone. He scanned the street, eyes landing on her through the bodega window. Even from this distance, she could see the cold fury in his expression. Not fury at her. Fury at whoever had dared to touch something he'd sworn to protect. Mara realized with a sinking feeling that she'd just started a war she never wanted to fight. The hotel roof was neutral territory, 30 stories above the city, wind whipping across the gravel surface.
No witnesses. No surveillance cameras.
Just the night sky and the weight of broken loyalty. Anton stood near the edge, looking out at the lights of Brooklyn spreading like a circuit board below. Behind him, 3 of his most trusted men waited in silence. And kneeling in the center of the roof, hands zip-tied behind his back, was Vincent Corelli, the rogue captain who'd leaked Mara's location. You know what I don't understand, Vincent? Anton's voice was conversational, almost friendly. I don't understand stupidity. Greed, I understand. Ambition, sure. But stupidity? That baffles me. Vincent spat blood onto the gravel. One of the guards had worked him over in the car. I didn't do anything wrong. You gave her location to the Marchetti family. 2 of their soldiers tried to grab her off the street. Anton turned slowly. That's not wrong. She's nobody. Some street rat who got lucky 7 years ago. Vincent's voice rose, desperate. You're risking everything. The business, our relationships, our reputation, for a girl who means nothing. She saved my son. So what? You paid her medical bills. You gave her an apartment. Debt paid. Vincent struggled against the zip ties. But no, that's not enough for you. You're acting like she's family, like she matters more than the people who've been loyal to you for decades. Marco stepped forward, but Anton waved him back. How much did they pay you? Anton asked. It's not about money. Then what? Principle. Anton laughed, cold and bitter. You betrayed me on principle? I did what was necessary. Vincent's eyes blazed with conviction. You're showing weakness. Every captain in the organization sees it. You're obsessed with this girl, making decisions based on sentiment instead of strategy. The Marchettis offered me a partnership, real power, not scraps from your table. And you believed them. I believe you're done. This generation of bosses, all of you, you're soft. Your father would have put a bullet in that girl's head the moment she became inconvenient. Anton was quiet for a long moment. The wind howled across the rooftop, carrying the smell of rain. My father, Anton said slowly, died alone in a prison cell, abandoned by everyone he'd terrorized into obedience. He had power, respect, fear, everything you think matters. But when the cancer ate through his lungs, not one person came to visit. Not his soldiers, not his associates. No 1 inch. He walked toward Vincent, crouched down to eye level. You want to know why I protect her? It's not weakness. It's because in my entire life, I've met maybe 5 people who did something good without calculating the cost. Most people are like you, Vincent, always running numbers, always asking what's in it for me. But that girl threw herself at a bullet for a stranger's kid.
No hesitation. No angel.
Just pure, stupid courage. That doesn't make her special. It makes her irreplaceable. Anton's voice dropped to something deadly. And you sold her to our enemies like she was a commodity. So kill me, Vincent lifted his chin. Do it. Prove you're still the man your father raised. Anton stood, dusted off his knees.
No.
Vincent blinked, confused. What? I'm not killing you. That's the old way, the way that leaves bodies in alleys and starts wars that kill innocent people. Anton nodded to Marco. Cut him loose.
Marco hesitated.
Boss. Do it. The zip ties fell away. Vincent rubbed his wrists, wary. I don't understand. You're out. Anton's tone was final. Out of the organization, out of the city, out of my territory. You have 72 hours to disappear. If I see you after that, if I hear your name in any conversation, if you so much as send a postcard from wherever you land, then we'll have a different conversation. You're exiling me? I'm giving you a chance to live. Anton turned back to the skyline. The Marchettis won't protect you now that you've failed. Your partnership offer died the moment their men came back empty-handed. So you have two choices. Take the exile and build something new somewhere else, or stay and watch what happens when everyone realizes you're worthless. Vincent stood slowly, understanding dawning on his face. Exile was worse than death in their world. No connections, no protection, no respect. He'd be starting over as nobody. This is because of her, Vincent said. You're destroying your own authority for a girl you barely know. No, Anton finally looked at him. This is because I'm tired of being my father. Tired of solving every problem with blood. Tired of building an empire where loyalty means fear and family means leverage. He gestured toward the door. Get out. While I'm still feeling generous. Vincent limped toward the exit, then paused. They won't stop coming for her. The Marchettis, the other families, they see her as your weakness now. Exiling me doesn't change that. Let them come. You can't protect her forever. Watch me. Vincent shook his head, almost pitying. You're signing your own death warrant. Maybe. But at least I'll die knowing I didn't sell out the person who saved my son. Anton's eyes were ice. Now get the hell off my roof. The door clanged shut. Marco moved beside Anton, troubled. Boss, he's right. Word's already spreading. Every crew from here to Philadelphia knows about the girl. Some will see it as honor, but others will see it as opportunity. Anton pulled out his phone, dialed. I know. Who are you calling? Everyone who matters. It's time to make something very clear. The line connected. Tony? It's Anton.
We need to talk.
All of us. Tomorrow night. Yes, about the girl. No, I'm not negotiating. Just be there. He hung up, made another call. Then another. Marco watched in silence as his boss systematically contacted every family head, every captain, every power broker in the New York underworld. What are you doing? Marco finally asked. Anton pocketed his phone, drawing a line, and daring them to cross it. Mara hadn't been back to St. Catherine's since the day Anton found her behind the dumpster. The building looked different in daylight, less threatening, more tired. Paint peeling from window frames, a playground with rusted swings, but flowers planted along the walkway. Someone cared about this place. You're sure about this? Marco sat in the driver's seat, engine idling. I need to do something normal. Mara clutched a bag of donated children's books she'd bought with her first paycheck. Something that isn't about running or hiding or him. He's trying to help, you know. I know she did know. Anton had kept his distance since the attempted kidnapping, giving her space while quietly flooding the neighborhood with guards she wasn't supposed to notice. But I can't be someone's project. I need to be useful on my own terms.
Marco nodded.
I'll be here. Anything feels wrong, you call. Mara stepped out into the autumn morning. Sister Margaret was directing volunteers near the entrance, college students doing community service hours, a few neighborhood parents. Normal people doing normal good. Can I help? Mara approached hesitantly. Sister Margaret looked up, recognition flickering across her weathered face. You're the girl from... Oh my goodness, you look so much healthier. Mr. Bennett mentioned you'd been ill. Mara stiffened at Anton's alias. Of course, he'd paved the way. I'm better now. I'd like to volunteer if you need the help. Always. Sister Margaret's smile was genuine. We're organizing the library today. The children's section is chaos. Think you can handle alphabetizing? I can handle it. The library was a converted classroom lined with mismatched bookshelves. Children aged 5 to 12 sprawled across beanbags and floor cushions, reading or pretending to. Mara started with the picture books, sorting them into piles. You're new. A girl of about 8 appeared beside her, gap-toothed and curious. What happened to your face? Sophia. Sister Margaret called from across the room. Manners. It's okay. Mara touched her scar unconsciously. I was in an accident. A long time ago. Does it hurt? Not anymore. Cool. Sophia grabbed a book about dinosaurs. Can you read to us? Miss Jennifer was supposed to, but she had to leave. Mara looked around at the expectant faces. 10 children, maybe more, watching her with the particular hope of kids who'd learn not to expect much. Sure, she heard herself say. She read for an hour. Then another. The children crowded close, asking questions, requesting favorite passages again. One boy, no older than 6, fell asleep against her shoulder. Mara felt something crack open in her chest, something that had been frozen for 7 years. You're good with them, Anton's voice came from the doorway. Mara looked up, startled. He stood there in casual clothes, jeans, a simple sweater, looking almost normal. Mateo stood beside him, carrying boxes. What are you doing here? Supply delivery. Anton gestured to his son. Mateo wanted to help. I'm just the muscle. Several children recognized Mateo and rushed over. He smiled, actually smiled, and started distributing new art supplies from the boxes. No fear, no tension. Just a kid being normal around other kids. He's different, Mara said quietly as Anton moved closer. You're different too, he watched her with something like wonder. Sister Margaret says you've been here for 3 hours. The children won't let you leave. They're easy to talk to. They don't expect anything. Unlike me. Mara set down her book. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Anton crouched beside her, voice low enough that the children wouldn't hear. I spoke with the other families last night. Made it clear that anyone who touches you answers to me personally. It should buy us some time. Should. Nothing's guaranteed in my world, but it's safer than it was. And Vincent.
Gone.
He won't bother you again. Mara searched his face for signs of violence, of blood. She found only exhaustion. You didn't kill him.
No.
I'm trying something different, a ghost of a smile. Probably stupid. Probably going to backfire. But I'm trying. Sister Margaret approached with a clipboard. Mr. Bennett, thank you so much for the supplies. And the anonymous donation that arrived this morning. Not anonymous, Anton straightened. I want you to know it's from my family. And I want you to know why. He looked at Mara. 7 years ago, this woman saved my son's life. She took a bullet meant for him. I owe her everything. So from now on, any support this orphanage receives from me is because of her. Sister Margaret's eyes widened. She looked between them, understanding dawning. The girl from the parking garage, she whispered. The police said she disappeared. She's not disappearing anymore, Anton's voice carried weight. She's under my protection. And I'd like to offer her a position here, if she wants it.
Paid.
Full benefits. As a caretaker and counselor. Mara stared at him. You can't just. I already arranged it with the board. You start next week if you accept. Or you can tell me to go to hell. Your choice. The children had gone quiet, sensing adult tension. Mateo watched from across the room, hopeful and nervous. Why? Mara asked. Why do you keep doing this? Because you deserve to build something instead of just surviving. Because these kids need someone who understands fear and still shows up anyway. Because, he paused, vulnerable in a way she'd never seen. Because my son smiles when you're around. And I'd forgotten what that looked like. Mara felt tears threatening again. She looked at the children, at the books scattered around her, at Mateo holding crayons and trying not to look like he was eavesdropping. One condition, she said finally. Name it. I'm not your employee. I work for the orphanage.
For them.
Not for you. Anton nodded slowly. Fair enough. And you don't get to control what I do or where I go. Agreed. And if I decide to leave, then you leave. No one stops you, he extended his hand. Deal? Mara looked at his hand for a long moment. Then slowly, she shook it.
Deal.
The attack came 2 nights later, just after sunset. Mara was locking up the library when she heard the first gunshot, a sharp crack that echoed through the empty hallways. Her body remembered before her mind caught up. Drop, cover, assess. She hit the floor behind a desk as more shots rang out. Shouting, running footsteps. A child screaming.
No. No, no, no.
Mara crawled toward the door, peered into the hallway. Sister Margaret was herding 3 children toward the chapel, but smoke was already billowing from the east wing. Fire alarms shrieked. Basement. Mara shouted. Get everyone to the basement. Sister Margaret saw her, nodded frantically, and disappeared around a corner with the children. More gunshots.
Closer now.
Mara's mind raced through building layouts from her time cleaning here, emergency exits, safe rooms, the old bomb shelter that hadn't been used since the Cold War. She ran toward the residential wing where the overnight kids slept. Mateo was supposed to be here tonight. Anton had mentioned something about a sleepover program for children without families during holidays. The residential door burst open. 5 masked men poured through, military-grade weapons raised. One grabbed a little girl trying to run past. Let her go.
Mara didn't think.
She launched herself at the man, driving her shoulder into his ribs. They crashed into the wall together. The man backhanded her across the face. Stars exploded in her vision, but she held on, clawing at his mask. It's her, someone shouted. The Russo bitch. A hand grabbed her hair, yanking her backward. She kicked out blindly, connected with someone's knee. Another gunshot, close enough that her ears rang. Where's the kid? One of them demanded. Where's Mateo Russo? I don't know. Mara tasted blood. Boss wants them both. Find the boy. Kill anyone who gets in the way. The man holding her threw her against the wall. Her old bullet wound exploded with pain. She slumped down, trying to breathe through the agony. The attackers split up, 3 heading for the dorms, 2 staying to search the main floor. Mara heard children crying behind locked doors, staff members pleading. She forced herself up. Her cleaning job had taught her every inch of this building, including the service corridors staff never used. She stumbled to a utility closet, fumbled for the hidden panel she'd discovered years ago. The service corridor was dark and narrow, filled with exposed pipes and electrical conduits. Mara followed it by memory, counting doorways. 4th door led to the basement. 5th door. She found Mateo. He was pressed against the wall in an old storage room, surrounded by 6 younger children. His face was pale but determined, and he held a broken broom handle like a weapon. Relief flooded his features. I heard gunshots. We need to move. Now, she did a quick count. 7 children total. Youngest, maybe 4 years old. Can you walk? Yes, but... Then follow me. Single file. No talking. Stay close. She led them deeper into the service corridors, away from the main building. The children were terrified but obedient, probably in shock. Mara's mind worked frantically. The basement shelter was too obvious. They'd check there eventually. But the old tunnel system that connected to the abandoned factory next door. Where are we going? Mateo whispered. Somewhere they won't find us. She stopped at an ancient metal door, rusted shut for decades. I used to hide here when I was homeless. Nobody knows about it. She threw her weight against the door.
Once. Twice.
On the 3rd try, it groaned open, revealing stone steps descending into darkness. It's scary. A little girl whimpered. I know. Mara knelt down, made her voice gentle. But we're going on an adventure, okay? Like in the stories. We're the heroes hiding from the bad guys. Will the bad guys find us? Not if we're very brave and very quiet. She led them down into the old tunnel. Cold, damp, smelling of mold and standing water. Behind them, the door swung shut with a final clang. Mara wedged it closed with debris, then used her phone's flashlight to guide them deeper. The tunnel ran for maybe 200 yards before branching. She took the children to the left branch, into what had once been a storage area. Boxes of old paperwork, forgotten furniture, decades of dust. "Everyone sit down," she instructed. "Stay quiet. I'm going to make sure we're safe." Mateo grabbed her arm. "You're coming back, right?" "I'm coming back. I promise." She pressed her phone into his hand. "If I'm not back in 10 minutes, call your father. Speed dial 1. Tell him where you are." "Mara." "Protect them, Mateo. That's your job now." She left before he could argue, moving back through the tunnel toward the orphanage. Near the sealed door, she could hear muffled voices, the attackers searching, angry and frustrated. "They're not in the dorms. Check every room." The boss said no mistakes. "What about the basement?" "Already checked. Empty." Mara pressed against the wall, barely breathing. They were looking for exits, escape routes. But they didn't know about the tunnels. The building's original blueprints had been lost in a fire decades ago. She waited in the darkness, listening to boots overhead, counting attackers by their voices. At least 6, maybe 8. Too many for her to fight. But if she could keep the children hidden until help arrived. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A text from Marco. "Boss is 3 minutes out. Hold tight." Mara allowed herself a moment of relief. Then another voice echoed through the building, one she recognized. "Vincent Corelli. Tear this place apart. I want that kid found, and I want the girl dead. We're sending Anton Russo a message he can't ignore." The exile had come back for revenge. And he'd brought a small army with him. Anton arrived like a storm, 4 SUVs, a dozen armed men. Enough firepower to start a war. But when he stepped out of the lead vehicle and saw the smoke billowing from St. Catherine's, his carefully controlled fury transformed into something colder. Calculated. Marco appeared at his side. Vincent's inside with at least 8 men. Maybe more. They're hunting for Mateo and the girl. Casualties? 2 staff members injured, not life-threatening. Most of the children got out, but we're missing 7 kids plus your son. And Mara. Anton's jaw clenched. "Vincent's making this personal. It's a trap, boss. He wants you to come in shooting. The Marchettis are probably watching, waiting to see how you respond. You massacre everyone in that orphanage. You'll have every family in New York calling for your head. And if I don't respond, they'll say you're weak, that you can't protect what's yours." Anton stared at the building. Through the windows, he could see shadows moving. Vincent's men, methodical and professional. They'd planned this carefully, chosen this location specifically because it put Anton in an impossible position. Save the children and look soft, or unleash violence in a place meant for innocence and prove everyone's worst assumptions about him. "Get me a phone," Anton said quietly. "And tell the men to stand down." "Boss." "You heard me. Nobody fires unless I give the order." Marco handed over a phone, confused and worried. Anton dialed 911, kept his voice steady and clear. "There's an active shooter situation at St. Catherine's Orphanage in South Brooklyn. Multiple armed men, children in danger. Send everything you have." He hung up before they could ask questions. "What are you doing?"
Marco demanded.
Changing the game, Anton pulled out his own phone, made another call, this one to his lawyer. "David, I need you to prepare a full disclosure package. Every financial record, every shell company, every gray area deal from the past 10 years. Yes, I'm serious. Because I'm about to walk into a police station and hand them a case." He ended the call, looked at his men. They stared back with a mixture of confusion and disbelief. "Vincent thinks he's cornered me," Anton said. "He thinks I have to choose between my reputation and the children. But there's a third option, one he's too stupid to see. Which is, I remove myself from the equation entirely." Understanding dawned on Marco's face, followed by horror.
"No. Boss, no."
"You can't." "I can and I will." Anton began unbuttoning his jacket, removing his gun. He handed everything to Marco, weapon, phone, watch. "The Marchettis want war? They can't have one if I'm not here to fight it. Vincent wants revenge? He gets nothing if I'm already in custody. You're talking about prison. Real prison, not some country club with tennis courts. I know. For how long? As long as it takes. Anton looked toward the orphanage. But first, I need to get those children out alive. And I need to make sure Vincent can never touch them again. Sirens wailed in the distance. Police responding to his call. Anton started walking toward the building, hands raised and visible. Boss. Marco called. You'll lose everything. Anton didn't turn around. I already lost everything the day I chose this life. At least this way, I saved something worth saving. He walked through the front entrance. Vincent's men immediately trained weapons on him. Hold fire. Vincent's voice echoed from somewhere inside. Let him come. Anton moved through smoke-filled hallways, past overturned furniture and bullet holes in walls. He found Vincent in the main hall, gun pointed at Sister Margaret, who stood protectively in front of two terrified children. There he is, Vincent smiled, ugly and triumphant. The great Anton Russo, walking in like a lamb. Let them go, Vincent. You want me? Here I am. Not good enough. Where's your son? Safe. Somewhere you'll never find him. Then I'll kill everyone here until you tell me. No, you won't. Anton's voice was eerily calm. Because the police are outside. They're surrounding the building right now. You have maybe 2 minutes before SWAT shows up. Vincent's smile faltered. You're bluffing. Am I? Anton pulled out the phone he'd actually kept, showed the 911 call log. I called them myself. Told them everything, active shooters, hostages, the works. This building is about to be swarming with cops. You idiot. You'll go down with us. I know. Anton took a step closer. That's the point.
See, you thought you had me trapped.
But I'm giving them something better than a mafia war. I'm giving them me, complete with evidence of financial crimes, money laundering, enough to put me away for 15 years minimum. Vincent stared, comprehension dawning. You're turning yourself in? The Marchettis wanted to weaken me by forcing me into a public massacre. You wanted revenge by making me choose between my son and my reputation. Anton's eyes were ice. So, I'm choosing neither.
No massacre.
No war. Just accountability. You're insane.
Maybe.
But here's what happens next. SWAT breaches in about 90 seconds. When they do, my men outside are going to surrender peacefully and testify that they were here to stop you. You and your Marchetti friends? You're going to prison for attempted murder, arson, and child endangerment. And I'm going to prison for everything I've actually done. Sirens screamed outside, multiple vehicles, tactical teams deploying. Difference is, Anton continued, I'll have protected my son and the woman who saved him. You'll just be another failed soldier who bet everything and lost. They'll kill you in prison, Vincent spat. Someone will get to you eventually. Probably, Anton heard boots pounding up the steps. But they'll have to go through federal custody to do it. And by then, my son will be old enough to choose his own path. Away from all of this. The doors burst open. Police. Hands up. Everyone on the ground. Anton dropped immediately, hands behind his head. Vincent hesitated. Fatal mistake. 2 officers tackled him, and his gun skittered across the floor. In the chaos, Anton caught Sister Margaret's eye and mouthed 2 words, basement tunnel. She nodded, understanding. As they zip-tied his wrists, Anton closed his eyes and thought about Matteo. About Mara. About 7 children hiding in darkness, waiting for safety.
He'd given them that.
Everything else was just the cost. The visiting room at Otisville Federal Correctional Institution smelled like industrial cleaner and stale coffee. Anton sat at a metal table, wearing prison khakis instead of Italian suits, looking thinner but somehow more at peace than he'd ever been. The door opened. Matteo walked in first, taller than 6 months ago, carrying a notebook. Behind him came Mara, healthy now, her cheeks filled out, wearing a simple blue dress and a staff ID badge from St. Catherine's. Dad, Matteo's voice cracked with emotion. He crossed the room quickly, and Anton stood to embrace him through the awkward limitations of supervised contact. "You grew," Anton said, pulling back to study his son's face. "What are they feeding you?" "Mara's cooking," Matteo grinned. "She makes this pasta thing with vegetables hidden in the sauce. I'm not supposed to know about the vegetables, but I figured it out." Anton looked at Mara over his son's shoulder. She stood back, giving them space, but her expression was soft. "Thank you for taking care of him. He takes care of me just as much." She moved closer, sat down across from Anton. "The arrangement is working. Marco checks in weekly. Your sister visits every Sunday. He's doing well." "School?" "Straight A's," Matteo said proudly. "And I joined the art club. No panic attacks in 3 months." Anton's eyes glistened. "That's good. That's really good, son." They sat, and for a moment, no one spoke. The weight of everything, the arrests, the trials, the dismantling of Anton's entire organization, hung between them like smoke. The fallout had been spectacular. Vincent and 4 Marchetti soldiers were serving 20 to life for the orphanage attack. Marco and most of Anton's loyal men had cooperated with authorities and received reduced sentences. The empire Anton had built crumbled in weeks, power vacuums filled by families who'd waited years for the opportunity. And Anton had pleaded guilty to racketeering, money laundering, and conspiracy. 15 years. Eligible for parole in 10 with good behavior. "The prosecutor came to see me," Mara said quietly. "She wanted to know if you'd coerced me into testifying on your behalf." "What did you tell her?" "The truth. That you saved my life, gave me a chance to be something other than invisible. That you turned yourself in to protect children you didn't even know." She paused. "She didn't believe me at first. Said Mafia bosses don't sacrifice themselves for strangers." "What changed her mind?" "I showed her the trust fund you set up for the orphanage. The anonymous payments to every shelter I'd ever worked at. The college fund for Matteo that specifically forbids him from any involvement in organized crime." Mara smiled slightly. "You weren't just protecting us. You were trying to dismantle your own legacy." Anton looked down at his hands, scarred, calloused, stained with choices he couldn't undo. "My father built an empire on fear. I inherited it, maintained it, told myself I was doing it for family. But empires built on fear don't protect anyone. They just make bigger targets." "The other families?" Mara asked. "Fighting each other for scraps. Without me as a stabilizing force, it's chaos. Probably temporary. Someone will consolidate power eventually. But by then, Matteo will be grown and far away from all of it." He looked at his son. "You're still planning on college? Columbia's engineering program?" Matteo nodded. "I want to build things, Dad. Real things. Not like what you built." Instead of being offended, Anton smiled. "Good. That's exactly what I want for you." "I drew something new," Matteo said, opening his notebook. He slid a drawing across the table, a detailed pencil sketch of Mara standing in front of St. Catherine's, surrounded by children. No guns, no violence. Just a woman who'd found her place. "She's the new director," Matteo explained. "Sister Margaret retired last month." The board voted unanimously. Anton studied the drawing, then looked at Mara. "Director? That's a big responsibility." "I learned from someone who understood sacrifice," she said. "Turns out I'm good at protecting things that matter." "Are you happy?" The question hung in the air. Mara considered it carefully. "I'm not running anymore," she said finally. "I have an apartment. I don't have to leave in the middle of the night. I have children who trust me. I have Matteo teaching me how not burn toast." She smiled. "I don't know if that's happiness yet, but it's close." "That's all I wanted," Anton said softly. "For both of you." A guard announced 5 minutes remaining. Matteo pulled out a paper bag. "I brought you something." Inside was a homemade sandwich, nothing fancy, just turkey and cheese on wheat bread. But it was wrapped carefully, made with attention. Anton unwrapped it slowly, almost reverently. "Who made this?" "I did," Mara said. "With Matteo's help." "We thought," she trailed off, uncertain. "You should eat well," Matteo finished. "Even here." Anton stared at the sandwich, at these two people who'd become family in the strangest way possible. The girl who'd saved his son. The son who'd saved the girl by remembering her. And him. The man who destroyed everything he'd built to keep them safe. He took a bite. The sandwich was slightly dry. The proportions were off, but it was the best thing he'd tasted in months. "It's perfect," he said, voice thick with emotion. Mara reached across the table, stopped just short of his hand. Contact wasn't allowed. But the gesture was enough. "Are you eating well?" she asked, echoing the question he'd asked her 6 months ago behind a dumpster. Anton looked at his son, healthy and smiling. At Mara, strong and present. At the drawing of a life rebuilt from ashes. "I am now," he said. The guard called time. They stood, said their goodbyes with the careful distance prison required. As they walked toward the door, Anton called out one last time. "Matteo, Mara." They turned. "Thank you," he said simply. "For not forgetting me." Matteo's eyes filled with tears, but he smiled. "We never will. We're family." And in that moment, Anton understood something his father never had. The strongest bonds weren't built through fear or obligation. They were built through sacrifice, through choosing to protect someone even when it cost you everything. A debt repaid, not with violence, but with dignity, not with power, but with presence, not with empire, but with love. The door closed behind them, but Anton didn't feel alone. For the first time in his life, he felt free.
The end.